Today on Go Island, we're in Ladysmith, and we're going to check out that greenhouse. It's filled with orchids. On today's show, going into the game in Qualicum Beach, Nanaimo's Confidential has a new album out, and what's coming up on this week's version of The Scene. That and more in the next 30 minutes. You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. I'm Kate Bergen. That is Shelley, and she is preparing her orchids for the upcoming orchid show and sale put on by the Central Vancouver Island Orchid Society. It takes place at Nanaimo North Town Centre on April 12th, 13th, and 14th. We're going to talk more about orchids later on this edition of Go Island. In the meantime, video gamers could soon find themselves immersed in a true virtual reality when it comes to video games, and that's all being developed by a Qualicum Beach resident. Cloudhead Games is seeking public backing through the Kickstarter.com program. They need to raise $65,000 by April the 17th, and Kickstarter is the largest online platform for fundraising for creative projects. You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. We are in the fabulous, beautiful greenhouse of Shelley Radink here in Ladysmith. She is the president of the Central Vancouver Island Orchid Society. There are orchids everywhere. There's some behind the cameraman right now, so that's my warning. Be careful, Stas. This is one that you are preparing to enter into the show, but you're not sure if it's going to make it.
I don't think it's going to be ready, Kate. It's actually, this orchid started sending out blooms that you couldn't see about 7 months ago.
Wow.
And all that you get at the end of the leaf are these closed, dead-looking sheaths. And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks ago, I've got all these inflorescences, they're called. That's the spikes that the flowers are on. And I was hoping it would be ready for Thursday night, but I don't think it's going to be ready because...
How long would it take to fully bloom?
I'm thinking it's going to be another week and a half easily. Okay. So, and the problem with our shows is that the flowers don't necessarily know when we're having shows, and they don't bloom in time for our shows, or things we think we're going to be able to take are finished by the time the show comes. I have a few that I thought were going to be great for our show, and they're almost done.
Are you worried that you're not going to have anything to take to the show?
No.
Okay.
There's always something to take.
We'll get into looking at some of those a little bit later on. I've heard that orchids are very difficult to grow, yet I'm seeing them more and more available for purchase in flower store, grocery stores. Are we getting better at growing them?
Mostly what you'll see in the grocery stores or in the department stores are a variety that maybe we'll talk about after, my favorite variety, Phalaenopsis. And they are readily available because they grow easily in the house. So they will grow best with high humidity, but they will do okay in a house environment. You won't see too many other varieties for sale in the grocery store or the department stores.
What's this thing hanging here?
These are Vandaceous orchids, so they're Vandas for sure.
Do they flower?
They do, and so a flower spike is coming on, oh my goodness, one down that way.
Okay.
Behind you. Sorry about the camera stuff.
We can find a look at it. We can get a look at it after. Oh, I think I see it up at the very top. We'll send Stas for a shot later.
Those two, I have flower spikes coming. So you'll see that the old, sorry Kate, I stepped on you. The old flower spikes, they'll come out of here. So there's two old flower spikes.
How long will these live? How long is the life cycle of an orchid?
Wow, that's a good question. For each variety, there's probably different answers.
Right.
These probably, I don't know, maybe 20 or more years, actually, I think.
Okay. I feel like we're just getting started, but we're going to take a break. We're going to throw things over to Nancy Wilmot in Port Alberni. I just knocked that orchid again. We're trying to be very careful here in the greenhouse. Nancy Wilmot is going to tag along with the Alberni Valley kindergarten class as they take their tour, a tradition in Port Alberni of the hospital. I love that little guy, the way he's walking at the end of the field trip. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. I don't know how many different varieties of orchids there are, and Shelley said that maybe she doesn't know the answer either. Are there really that many different kinds of orchids?
There are thousands of kinds of orchids, and I'm sure I've read or we've talked about it at the club, how many there are. All I know is that when my son got married in Costa Rica a few years ago, we went on an orchid tour, a butterfly and hummingbird tour with orchids.
Wow.
And the fellow asked, how many types of orchids do you think are in Costa Rica? And I just blurted out 2,000. And he said, that's exactly right. There's 2,000 in Costa Rica alone, which means there are 2,000 varieties of butterflies or moths that pollinate them just in Costa Rica.
Wow.
So there are probably 40, 100, I don't know, 1,000.
And then to identify a favorite out of that, impossible, but this is your favorite classification?
Pretty much my favorite classification. So the Phalaenopsis, I think we talked about a little while ago, about the most common ones sort of found in the grocery store. They are hybrid Phalaenopsis, meaning they've been crossed. I'm not great with the science, but they've been crossed.
Why do you like them if they're common?
Because of the variety of colors that you can get in the flowers. My favorite in this class, though, are the species. So the species orchids are the original ones. Here's an example
Those are so,
of a species orchid. So the
Wow.
species are the ones, this is Phalaenopsis lobii, and they made these ultimately by crossing species years ago.
Right.
So my favorite are the various species varieties. This also is a species variety. So you're getting closer as a species to what they would hybridize with.
How many orchids do you have in this greenhouse?
About 490, we'll round it off.
490. We'll have another look at some of those later in this edition of Go Island. In the meantime, it's time for a short break. Still ahead today on Go Island, a Nanaimo-based rapper on his music and life and the classroom energy diet. That and more still ahead today on Go Island. You're watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4. We're surrounded by beauty today. We're in Shelley's greenhouse in Ladysmith. She's the president of the Central Vancouver Island Orchid Society. They're having their big show coming up at Nanaimo Northtown Center, April 12th, 13th, and 14th. A photographer's delight and everything you could possibly want to know about orchids. We're throwing things over now to James Green in the wake of his current release. Rapper Confidential has a conversation and talks about life with James. Today on Go Island, it's all about orchids. The annual Central Vancouver Island Orchid Show, do you like my hair, by the way, my new hair, is coming up at Nanaimo Northtown Center this weekend, April 12th, 13th, and 14th. It's kind of a big deal, Shelley, this show. How many people come from where?
We didn't do that.
I'm destroying her orchids.
No, nobody did that.
Okay.
They jump
Top
sometimes.
heavy.
No,
Okay,
they do,
that
they
would get a
jump.
little bit scary at night,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
It would.
It's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And there are 5 clubs in the south of BC that have these shows together. And there's Fraser Valley in the fall, Vancouver and Victoria in the spring, and us in the later spring. Richmond is a really small club. I don't believe they ever host the show, but they certainly show up at all the rest of them. So we travel to the other shows, and they travel to us. So we'll be having displays from Fraser Valley, Vancouver, Richmond, Victoria.
And it's a big deal to be a judge. I heard
Yes.
last year there's like 4 years of training or
At
something?
least, yeah. So what these are actually, Kate, are they're American Orchid Society shows. So we're required as members of the American Orchid Society to put on these show and displays because part of the mandate of our club and the AOS is to educate about orchids.
And we've done so little of that today on Go Island. There'll be lots of opportunity and people on hand for the entire show to answer any kind
Any
of question.
questions? Yeah.
What's the biggest question you get? The most common question?
Oh, how do I grow this? What should I do? How often should I water it? What do I pot it in?
Right, and you get a lot of just strangers walking up and
Yeah.
just chit-chatting. Photographers delight.
Yes, lots of photographers come to the shows.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. You've been fantastic.
Thank you for
I feel
doing
like we're
this for us.
just getting started, but the Orchid Show does run at Nanaimo Northtown Center, April 12th, 13th, and 14th. You can check it out. In the meantime, check out this. It's the next installment of the Shell Energy Diet Challenge. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island, and it's pretty hard to be anything but happy when you're surrounded by all of the beautiful orchids, and they're going to be all over the place at Nanaimo North Town Center on April 12th, 13th, and 14th. Thanks for watching this edition of Go Island. We'll see you next time.